Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
New activation and upfront payment for 3-month plan required. Taxes and fees extra. Additional restrictions apply. See mintmobile.com for full terms.
Whether you're driving to work, biking to a friend's place, or on the way to your next vacation, Amazon Music has your comedy fix covered. As an Amazon Prime member, you have access to ad-free top podcasts. To start listening, download the Amazon Music app or visit amazon.com/on-the-go comedy. That's amazon.com/on-the-go comedy. And listen to your favorite podcasts on the go.
Right, that's that done.
Hello and welcome to this. It is the EggChasers Rugby Podcast, the podcast about rugby that doesn't take itself or the game too seriously. Here I am with Sober Phil. Hello, Sober Phil.
Sober today.
I say sober. What is it, like 10:30? You must have had your first drink already by now with your current record.
I'm now dry since we went for a couple of beers on Thursday night.
Well, yes, we did, didn't we? We can't say who with because we can't compromise his information.
Yes.
But we had a wonderful time. It was very nice.
Very good watching the France-Namibia game, which we probably won't go into too much detail on later, but we had a lovely time. So I'm sober since Thursday night.
Well done, mate. Well done.
Thank you.
I was sober on Thursday night. I was very, very disciplined.
I felt like it was false advertising because you set up a group with the two of us and our unnamed mystery individual.
Yep.
And the group was titled Beers. I arrived, and two of us were having beers, and you were drinking sparkling water.
I don't mind drinking sparkling water, but
I don't mind drinking sparkling water, but
it's not as advertised.
Yes, precisely.
Yes, okay, fair enough. Well, I'll tell you who I think is probably a bit drunk right now.
Well, maybe one Tim Cocker, maybe any Irish man, woman, or child in France or in Ireland.
Yeah, and maybe some South Africans.
Maybe quite a few South Africans.
But who might have been drinking preemptively for their win and then have a few more to drown their sorrows.
They might have, after the first 20 minutes, opened something in celebration.
Oh, my word. So
what a game.
2 other games happened, and a game on Friday, and a game on Thursday.
And you talked about the Uruguay-Italy game, which was on Wednesday.
Yep, so we can bin that one.
Yeah.
I have nothing to say about all the other games because they're all irrelevant compared to what we saw last night.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll touch on it later, but it is everything pales into insignificance compared to that game.
Yeah.
And everything, like, I am convinced, other than France, if they've got a full team out, not a single other team can come close to that intensity at this World Cup. No one.
I don't think Ireland could come close to that intensity.
Again.
And let me explain what I mean by that in a second. Because I think it's worth just pointing out that the way I thought about this game, in the same way I thought about the Heineken Cup final, is we've got a handful of wonderful games left in the world of rugby.
Ever.
Right? Yeah, I think we'll...
you said 3 years from now? 5 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, don't be surprised if the games that we are seeing now are the absolute pinnacle of the sport. You might never see a better game of rugby than what you saw last night.
Yeah,
it just will not happen. And we should learn from this game and take out what rugby should be. Like, rugby should be so intense, so difficult that you should watch it and go, not only could I never do that, I can't imagine how anyone can do that. And that's what makes it special. Like, it's the ability to look at something and go, no. It's like watching Strongman. Do you know when you watch Strongman?
Yeah.
How is that possible?
Yeah. How can a human being achieve that?
Yeah. So that's my first takeaway, and I'll give you the rest of them later. But yeah, I thought it was. I thought it might be one of the last great games, and it was. It was better than that.
It was a truly phenomenal game. It was absolutely awe-inspiring. And it's funny because I've looked at the stats, and if you just look at the stats...
Throw them in the bin.
They are, like, there's less than half the metres run compared to something like the France-New Zealand or the Wales-Fiji, two of the other games, kind of 70-80% of the carries. There's fewer than half the kicks from hand, which is amazing. So there's on kind of ordinary metrics, you would say there is less rugby played. But
What about time in play? Do you know?
I've not got it. I actually assume it was quite a lot lower than some of those other games because you've got 70% fewer runs, you've got half the meters made, you've got half the kicks from hand. That there's just less of everything, but everything you had was dialed up to 11. So what you had was just so intense and physical and not perfect in terms of it wasn't the highest possible standard. Highest possible skill set. It's not that there was no errors. It's just everything was exactly what you wanted it to be.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And not only do I agree with that, I think the first 20 minutes from South Africa might be the most intense rugby I've ever seen. Like it might be that high. I don't think Ireland could deal with it, but I also was fully aware that I'm not sure South Africa can keep this up.
Yeah,
and what's the answer to high intensity rugby? Get the ball and keep it.
Yeah,
like, if you can't defend like that for prolonged periods. And to be fair, they nearly did. And that's what's remarkable about it. They nearly did.
Some of this South Africa defence was amazing, and while South Africa's discipline cost them, it wasn't their discipline in defence. Their discipline in defence was excellent. They were always giving the extra yard on to keep them onside, which Ireland
did not.
And there possibly could have been a few more penalties against Ireland for infringing offside. They always tackled low, and they were
so low.
Really, really disciplined and supporting their body weight at the breakdown when they were in defence. I actually thought South Africa's indiscipline, particularly in the first half, actually came from when they tried to go wide. And Ireland have got some great jacklers in the wide channels.
Yeah.
And South Africa got a little bit too stretched when they got stopped. And then that's where they were either held in on or went off their feet.
The lessons I'm taking from this game, are very broad macro lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Which is when idiots, and I do mean idiots, I can't think of another word for it, people who don't understand the game, at its very core, talk about it. They talk about things which are remarkably unimportant, and they're quite nice sometimes. But this game flew in the face of all the wisdom. So I talk about the high tackle thing. It's going to be great because of the offloads and the points. Didn't need them. We need less time setting up for scrimmages. Not true.
Mm-hmm.
Kicks are boring. Wrong. Like there is every part of this game was awesome because the fundamental nuts. And do you know what this game was about? Two really boring concepts. One, defence, which is not top of the list. In fact, we spend all of our time in rugby thinking how we can depower the defence and wanting to see ball in hand. No, incorrect. Defence and kick chase versus ruck accuracy, and those are the two main things from both teams. South Africa defence and kick chase.
With one other thing to add, because I completely agree with that. With the other critical thing, although it didn't end up being decisive, being the set piece.
Yes.
Because the set piece was, it's a fascinating battle. If we talk through the two bits, Ireland lost their first 4 lineouts.
Incredible.
I've never seen that. The first 4, all 4. And then fair play to them, because with that much pressure after losing the first 4, they came back in the lineouts and they won, what would it be? They won 12 of the next 14. That is not a bad record.
No,
12 out of 14 against one of the best lineouts, defensive lineouts in the world is not bad. But to lose the first 4 was huge. And the scrum as well, which...
Yes.
Now, the scrum was a fascinating battle because early on we got... this is how I saw it, and I am a non-expert when it comes to scrums. I saw early on very evenly matched. Like, both teams holding each other and complete even until, say, the 34, 35-minute mark. The last 5 minutes or so of the first half, South Africa just got on top.
Yeah.
They maybe won one scrum penalty, but they didn't get on top enough to make it totally dominant. And then in the second half, they just started getting more and more and more powerful and more dominant. until, and it was at the point where I think Dion Faree came on, because Bongyumba Nambi had to go off at that point because he'd run himself into the ground. Dion Faree came on, and then it probably evened itself out a little bit more. Ty Furlong came off, Finlay Bealham came on, and it probably balanced itself out a little bit more at that point.
Right, so here's how I saw it. It's not dissimilar to yours. In fact, it's very similar. I thought that South Africa were way on top for the first half. The reason I say that is not because they were winning scrum pens or whatnot. I think they might win one or two. But the stability of that scrum was masterful. It just didn't move. On their own strike, it did not move. Rarely do you see scrums like that. Now, that's also a credit to both teams, because often you'll see the fight and then that will draw the penalty. So Ireland must be really conscious of, we just can't give away, just lock out, don't give away the penalty. And South Africa have got the discipline not to go for it. On the Ireland ball, it's a little bit more messy. So to me, South Africa had the advantage. Coming to second half, when they start replacing the front row.
And the second row, because they replaced both second rows after maybe 50 minutes or so, something like that.
They absolutely wrecked one or two of the Irish scrums.
And that's where I was saying that. So I was watching this with my old man, and we were on a slight delay. So I had no Twitter, no WhatsApp or anything like that. And I said, right, at this point, this is maybe 10 minutes into the second half, I was like, Porter's done. You've got to get Porter off now, because he's so fatigued. He works so hard around the pitch, and he didn't. He kept on, and I was like, they've made a bad call. And Porter, with maybe 10 minutes left on the clock, won a penalty against Malherbe, where Malherbe got too long.
Yeah. And
the engine on Porter, he only got taken off with 5 minutes to go.
Incredible, wasn't it?
It's absolutely the amount of work he did.
So I think the last South African scrum was a penalty, I think. Yeah, I think the last scrum was a penalty. And the reason I think that was a penalty was hubris on South Africa's side. They were
It was when they went too early. What was the game-winning penalty? South Africa pushed too early. And I think it was exactly right. I thought there was one or two scrums early on where Ben O'Keefe was a little bit whistle happy. Like, he penalised Ireland twice for an early engage that looked marginal to my untrained eyes. Other than that, I thought he refereed overall very well. I thought there was one or two errors, but that could have gone either way for each team. But he presided over a very good game, and he wasn't too. There was, I'll tell you, one of the passages of play where first 5 minutes, Ireland put a bit of pressure in the South African 22, spill the ball, and South Africa break from their 22 and get into the Ireland's 22. There was at least 3 hits or clear outs in that passage of play that if they're looked at, there's some
one on Ringrose.
There was a clean out from Diolande on Ringrose. There was a tackle, I can't remember who it was, maybe a tackle on Creel. There was at least 3 shots that never got looked at. Yeah. If they get looked at, something has to happen. And I was so glad that...
Totally agree with this.
So glad that it was just, let it play.
And they weren't... Right, so this is what people don't understand because they're morons. And I say morons, not the average rugby fan, but the average sort of rugby Twitter...
The Twitterati, yeah.
And the people that sit down and talk in World Rugby in their stupid circles, or the absolute morons that they put forward from the RFU Council to discuss these things and how to make this game safer. It doesn't need to be safer, it needs to be more exciting. And these clear-outs that you were saying, they weren't a result of malicious intent or dirty play. They're a result of a high kinetic contact game. I don't know how you get to the breakdown that quick, unless they don't want them to do that. And if they don't want them to do that, that's not the game that I want to watch.
You've got to change the laws.
Yeah.
You've got to somehow take the breakdown out of the game.
Yeah, they were low, they were aggressive.
Against legal jacklers as well. Because there is a different position where if you've got an illegal jackler, the referee should be spotting that. The referee should be blowing.
I don't know how one referee can... I mean,
no.
So we've got a situation in the one you're talking about, okay? So the referee is going to be set up because he assumes there's going to be a line-out win and he needs to referee, presumably, a maul for the attacking team. The ball is stolen. It comes down. He's already in the wrong position. First thing that happens is a box kick. Box kick goes up. So right, time to get on the far end of the field to watch this box kick. The box chasers follow up and annihilate somebody. I can't remember who it was, but I was like, that is...
Was it Mac Hansen got
Yeah, Mac
hit?
Hansen.
I think it was Mac Hansen on that one.
be on his wing.
Yeah, it was him because he catches it in the air, takes one step, like feet on the ground, and bang, he's back.
Yeah. Oh God, I loved it. I loved it. Yeah. Tell me, kick chase is boring, idiots. Tell me it's boring. Tell me it's not. Right. Next thing you know, the South Africans have arrived. They spread it wide, cross-field kick. It gets somehow regathered, and we are, in terms of a rugby field, right, the furthest point to where the ball started possible. So opposition 5 to just outside the 5. I mean, you can get a bit further, but the route to get there, right, is this massive sort of L shape followed by another L shape. How is Ben O'Keefe meant to do that, right? And so if he can't do that, you're going to have some flexibility in the laws because you can't review everything. You can't look at illegal jacklers, and that's just part of the game.
And what I thought was, for the full refereeing panel, Ben O'Keefe did really well. The 2 touch judges and the TMO all actually did, because the TMO wasn't too bunker happy. He wasn't constantly in Ben O'Keefe's ear like some TMOs perhaps are, to look at this, look at that. No, it was a masterclass in officiating. One of the great uses of TMOs actually was, I think it was just at the start of the second half. South Africa kick off, Ireland claim the ball, Etzebeth makes a tackle, and he's on the wrong side, and he's trying to get out. But as he gets out, the ball gets dislodged. South Africa pick it up and go, and Ben O'Keefe is letting it play because he's on the far side. He's not seen it, and the TMO rightly calls him back and stops it. And it was just a good, simple call that was the right use of the TMO. It wasn't. They weren't whistle happy. They weren't
Ben O'Keefe
too eager.
as well as the illegal. I'm not saying the physical clean-outs. I think he missed a lot of high tackles, not head on heads, but a lot of high tackles went. So lots of seatbelt tackles, lots of riding up, and that I think should be the standard. You look at that game and go, there you go, that works for everyone. No one got yellow carded. I don't think there was an HIA for
ring rows. But that was where ring rows...
Something else, wasn't it? It wasn't head-on-head. It was something...
Well, he did get... It was him making a tackle on Diolandi.
That's right, yeah.
He threw his body in. Because actually, one of the counterintuitive things is we know that 2/3 of head injuries come from the tackler, not the tackled player. And that was an example. It was right, and he passed it. But that actually gave him the time to kind of shake off a stinger, because it was more his shoulder that was impacted on that collision.
Do you know, I think the big loser from this game is Scotland.
Yeah.
The reason I say that is not because Scotland's like, oh God, look what's coming our way. It's more the fact that they had to play South Africa first.
Yeah.
And I think whoever loses this, it must have one hell of a mental toll, because everything was out there. And I mean, I don't think South Africa will walk away from that saying we should have won that. I'm sure they can say we could have won that.
And probably if Handré Pollard's playing, or a 80% kicker, because they got, it's a 20% of their kicks. They got 1 from 5. They left 11 points out there. Now, the kicks, there was a couple from Libbok that were certainly kickable, but they also they had 2 very long shots from in their own.
Missed.
Yeah, they're in their own half. They had 2, but yeah, they'll say they could have won it under different circumstances.
But they could have won it, but they couldn't have played any better.
No,
I think that's what you're relying on. I mean, if you play that game again, it could easily be South Africa.
Oh, and I actually think maybe looking at that, because the chances are South Africa will play France in the quarters now, unless something miraculous happens in the Ireland-Scotland game. South Africa will play France in the quarters, and I think South Africa beat France.
I agree.
Particularly without Dupont. I think with Dupont, well, Ronan O'Gara...
Well, Dupont's not going to be the difference maker here, is he?
Well, Ronan O'Gara... So, he's not the difference maker in terms of the physicality, but the phrase that Ronan O'Gara used when he was describing Dupont in his interview with Jim Hamilton the other day was, he is a 10-point player. And I genuinely think that is right. That is correct. So, France, if you take 10 points off them, South Africa are going to win that. I think they are in that position, because this is using O'Gara's words. He's as strong as a front row or a back row. He's got the handoff of a back row or a centre. Yeah, he's got the pace of a winger, and he's got the rugby intelligence, the brain of the best scrum half or fly half of all time. He is everything.
Yeah, he's quite important.
And
But still, even with all
Luku's
that-
okay, and Kuyu is okay. No, they're not okay. They are very good scrum halves, but they're not 10-point difference makers.
Kulud, or however you say his name, would be
Kuyu.
my next one up for him, for France. I think they'll call Serena. Oh, no. They're not going
They're not going to call anyone because he'll be
they need him.
available. Yeah.
Oh, it's the worst of all
Yeah.
scenarios, this. Because I was thinking, like, if Baptiste Saran comes up, maybe they do, like, an Alex Mitchell.
Yeah, and
you
he
guys
starts.
start, and we've got our backups.
Yeah.
With various roles. But they can't do that.
Yeah.
Oh,
they
my
can't
God.
unless they do like South Africa did with Marks and jettison someone else for. They need another injured player, but
Or maybe they just review him at the knockouts and go, he's not making it. Off you go.
yeah,
That could be another one.
Possible.
But then you want your scrum half, particularly the way the French play, involved in that camp as soon as.
yeah.
What if they can bring him into camp anyway?
I think the two that they've got, I think Luku and so you can only bring one in when you drop a player. So
Yeah.
as an example, do you remember in 2019 where Eddie Jones had the Suntory Sungoliaths scrum half
Yes, I do.
replicating Aaron Smith?
Yes.
And similarly, I'm sure in 2019, Bryn Gatland was playing with the Wales, or like training with the Wales squad, because you can't have an eligible player.
And do you know who Ireland used to train against them? It's a good bit of trivia, this.
Go on.
I said a good bit of trivia. I can't remember the answer.
That is a hell of a...
It is a physio who was brother of one of the players.
Oh, I'll tell you who
Go on.
Wales did. Sam Warburton's brother was a physio, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it's Ireland it was. And
Was
he's-
it?
And he's in his lifting blocks. He's a big, tall boy.
Yeah.
So he's one of the second rows brothers or something.
Okay.
And they were lifting him against Ireland.
Yeah.
I'd love to be training fodder for Ireland.
Here's an interesting one. So, did you see the O2 Inside Line, the England YouTube thing this week? And did you see what familiar face was in the...
George Cruz.
George Cruz.
Why do they do that? I mean, yeah, okay, we just...
No,
discussed why, but-
he's doing line-outs with it. So he is actually on staff coaching.
Is he? Didn't know.
Yeah. And he apparently did a bit with the Six Nations, which I wasn't
No, I didn't
not
know.
aware of at all. But he said the boys are absolutely ruining him, which I don't know if they're just giving him loads of banter or if he's actually being like lining up.
Yeah. Well,
Because Kevin Sinfield said the other week that he's lined up on the wing is a defensive drill, which I don't know where you stand with that, because obviously Sinfield and Cruz were international rugby players. Obviously Sinfield in
Yeah.
different code, but they are international rugby players who are eligible to play for England.
just in case.
Like, how are they? What's the difference? Is it because they are not currently registered rugby union players? Does that mean that you
Must
can
be.
call
because-
them up?
Yeah, because you can't... Yeah, because there's no way they can play.
Yeah, they
Whereas
shouldn't-
if you had the guys who could play and just sign them up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whereas,
definitely.
like, what about Wigglesworth then? Because he only finished playing.
No,
last-
he must be deregistered.
He must be deregistered.
Must be
yeah.
deregistered. But there again, Andy Nicol got on the bench for the Lions in 2001. He was basically a bag carrier, and he was on the bench for the third test because someone got injured.
yeah,
So they must have. I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe-
I don't know.
Maybe
answer
the
is-
rules were different back then.
Exactly right. I bet Sinfield has the best work rate over 8 hours. 8 hours of rugby. Sinfield comes into his own.
You can just drag the game out.
Yeah,
Just a
we really
little-
get them in the deep water, and Kev will come into his own.
Yeah.
Yeah, so back to this game. I don't think that either team will be looking at it and say we could play. I don't think either one will say we can play better. I mean, there'll be things that they can do.
Yeah.
Improve lineouts, improve kicking. But
Yeah.
overall, as an effort, neither of them could play better. But they could have won.
I just don't. So, if this goes how it might go now, where this could well be the final, this has got to be just about the most likely final.
I agree now. I didn't previously, but I do now.
Yeah, I didn't. I actually I said previously I thought the France New Zealand was going to be replicated in the final. I don't think that now. France could get there, although they have to play South Africa, which
Nope.
as it stands, I think South Africa win that. If this game is repeated in the final, I think South Africa win that.
Although, do you know, South Africa, just going back, I mean, Diolande had a marvellous game. And the reason I just mentioned Diolande then is because I'm thinking of how France set up, and they'll be using Dante in exactly the same way as Diolande was used.
Yeah.
So you look at these two teams, and they're very, very similar. Two incredibly powerful front rows. I mean, it's not to me, that obvious that South Africa will run them over. Yeah, I'll tell you why. Because looking at the South Africa performance, it was very consistent. So they did have their ups and downs, but throughout the 80, they were pretty consistent.
They were so intense. It's that consistent intensity. And they might not be spreading it wide all the time, but just the physicality.
But they do. That's the other thing. That's the other thing. People say, "Oh, South Africa, they're all about the big boys."
No,
they are, but they're also not.
They spread it wide, and they in that first half, I think they, as I said before, they spread it wide, perhaps a bit too early, too soon. Like they almost cost themselves a try in the first 5 minutes by spreading it really wide, really early.
Wilhelmser looked simply world class.
He looked ace, didn't he?
Simply world class.
He was phenomenal.
And Matt Hansen is not world class, right? He's just not a world class player. He doesn't have world class physicality or speed or strength. Like there's nothing about him that's world class. But he is definitely a world class player. Like I've changed my mind on him now. Like he's just there for the big games.
Same. You're right. The one thing he does have that is world class is the sharpness of mind.
Yeah, maybe it's that.
Because he is. You're exactly right. He's not the fastest. He's not the most steppy. He's certainly not the biggest, the most well conditioned, the strongest, or any of those things. But he is a big game player.
I'm not even sure he is any good for any other team.
Because Ireland get the most out of him.
He is perfect for Ireland.
Yeah.
And I can't really describe... Yeah, the mind must be it. The mind in two ways. Like his ability to be in the right place at the right time. He's very consistent with his positioning. Like he will just
under
be
the
there.
high ball.
And the high ball.
Even when he gets nailed.
Yeah, and that's it, the bravery.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many times I need to get nailed before not catching it. I mean, I guess I would... If I can see the potential of me getting nailed on the first catch, I'm not catching a ball.
Your man, your ball.
Not interested. He just carries on doing it. He got nailed, obviously, for the passage of play that we spoke about.
Yeah.
Somebody else got absolutely annihilated by a back row, followed by Benambi. I can't say his name now.
Bongi and Benambi.
Yeah, him. He had a game for the ages, by the way.
Yeah.
His tackling, and they both absolutely smashed him. I think it was Matt Hansen again.
Yeah.
And that's just remarkable. So I can't... there's so many things in this game which fly in the face of rugby orthodoxy. And you just see it... I mean, how long would Matt Hansen have to play in the English Championship before he got a call-up to England?
He just wouldn't...
He wouldn't play in the Premiership.
He doesn't fit the aesthetics.
Yeah.
He just wouldn't get... He's so good, though. And I was wrong about him. And I've said this before, I was partly biased because I love Robbie Balakoon. But he is so good. Matt Hansen is so good.
And I think it's also credit to the coaches as well to recognise that.
That's
because it's so easy to say, no, we want the super athlete.
You're not running a sub 11 seconds. You're not squatting 200 kg, whatever. You're not benching 150 plus. Therefore, you're out.
Yeah.
No, get him in. Did you see his post-match interview?
I did not.
It's funny. It'll be on Twitter. I've not seen it on Twitter. I watched it live. It was quite funny. Did a nice little swear and then apologised and almost swore again when he was apologising.
Well, both these teams were celebrating like they won the World Cup, and I think it would be a game worthy of the final.
It would be. My question is, I know South Africa can repeat that physicality. Ireland, can they repeat it? Because they have to repeat it so South Africa can repeat it time and time again. Can Ireland now repeat it? They've got to do it 4 games on the bounce. Because they've got to do it against Scotland. Scotland are a physical pack. It's not quite the same level, but they've got to be... If they're off their mettle by a few degrees, they could slip up that game and end up playing France. And that doesn't bode well for Ireland.
Nope.
They then, assuming they do beat Scotland, they get up for it. They've got to get up for it again against New Zealand. And New Zealand... The difference between New Zealand and these teams is the front row. You just don't have the strength or depth in the front row.
Nobody does, though.
They've got... France do.
Yeah, France, sorry.
France do, but no one else does. But New Zealand, their second row combination is as good, is within a few degrees. Their back row combination is as good within a few degrees. If you've got Ardy and Shannon Frizzell can mix it with... If Shannon Frizzell is fit, they can mix it with anyone. But New Zealand don't have that front row physicality. So Ireland, can they do it? They'd have to do it against Scotland, followed by New Zealand, followed by it's one from the other side. And I'm not sure whether they'd go to the England or the Wales, like Pool C or Pool D winners. I can't remember, but one of those. They can do all that, but then can they the following week get it up again for South Africa? I think those 4 games are maybe a step too far for Ireland.
In a way, I feel that it's easier for the Irish now. They've got that formula to know how to beat these teams. To go against similar teams is not a big deal. You might not want to see New Zealand where they're spreading around. You might want to see Scotland.
I think they'll win those. I just don't think they can. Basically, the one that I'm concerned for them is the second time they play South Africa or France, whoever makes it there. That's the one I think will be a game too far.
Don't
for them.
do what I do, which is only consider it from the point of view of the Ireland team. Because whoever's facing Ireland will have watched all of these games or have gone through their own trauma to get there. And they're like, oh my God, now we've got to face Ireland. I think it goes both ways. Now,
well, here we go. Ireland's route would be, as it currently looks most likely, New Zealand.
Yeah.
Assuming they beat Scotland, or at least get through on points difference and bonus points. So Scotland, then New Zealand. Then they would play the winner of Pool C versus the runner-up in Pool D, which currently looks like Wales v Argentina. So Ireland are going to beat Wales or Argentina.
I would say so.
In the semi-final. So as it stands, they've got to beat New Zealand to get to a World Cup final. That is not a bad route now.
Christ, no, it's not, is it? No, it's not. So let's just talk a second about where this game could have turned, like key points it could have turned. In my mind, there were because it's such a close game. The obvious one was two obvious ones for me. One is right at the start where Ireland cannot get their lineouts together.
Yeah.
They get a score from the lineout, or they milk a penalty from a lineout and kick it or something. You're looking at a different game. Even 3 points in this game is massively different. So the lineouts would be one. And the other one would be, I think there were basically 2 drops over the Ireland line. Khaleesi drops it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And there's one which in my mind, should have been a try. A more, not experienced team, but a more clinical team would have finished that.
Yeah.
And both of those things make an enormous difference.
So I think you're right. And on that Khaleesi drop, that was, I think I'm right in saying that one, there was a period of pressure. So Ireland had a couple of minutes in the South Africa 22. Then South Africa break. This is right at the start of the game.
Yeah.
South Africa break. They get the 3, and then from there, they seem to have 10 minutes in the Ireland's half, and Ireland's 22 almost, which they came away with nothing. I think that's where the Khaleesi drop was. But if they get another 3 points or 7 points there, and they're either 6 or 10 points up, I don't think Ireland get back into it at that stage. I think that Ireland holding out on that passage and then going back down the other end of the field for Ireland's 10 minutes of pressure that culminated in the Mac Hansen try, if it's 10-0 at that, it doesn't get to that stage.
No, another fascinating thing for me about Ireland is how they dealt with the pressure, the mindset.
Yeah.
Their discipline. I don't mean discipline with the ref. Discipline with themselves it's next level, and you don't appreciate this until you come under that kind of pressure. One of the things they do, and I've mentioned this before, but I really noticed at this game, is they don't take the ball at pace. They just don't do it.
Well, so I mentioned this. I think it was the Six Nations.
Yeah.
I think they've got 2 types of forward carriers.
Yes.
I mean, carriers, not just carries.
Yeah.
So you have the heavy traffic carriers who generally take it almost standing still. They take it almost standing still, and they will go for ruck speed. So they will.
That's exactly it.
They will carry the ball into contact down.
Yeah.
So they take kind of 1 or 2 defenders with them straight to ground to get fast ball. So that's one type of carrier. And like James Ryan does that.
All the front row do
Porter, it. Yeah, Porter, Kelleher certainly. Sheehan's the other type of carrier, or can be the other. Furlong does it. And then you have the forward, and Peter O'Mahony is definitely that type of carrier as well. Then you have the other forwards who they have the license to try and take the ball on at a bit more pace or put a bit of footwork on. And that's Van der Fleer.
Yep.
That's Caelan Doris. That's Sheehan.
Yeah.
And maybe Ty Byrne, depending on where he is.
Do you think there's maybe a different way to look at this. Maybe it's they select the type of carry depending on where they are on the field.
I think from having watched this and thought about this before, my read of it is it's more that who is in position to carry. And certain, like James Ryan, for example, will never try and put feet on anyone. He will just go down and get the fastest ruck speed. Whereas some of the other players, like Caelan Dorris or Ty Burn, who can do both, they might select it on the area of the field.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, again, talking about things which are counterintuitive, you are taught from day one, take the ball at pace. And indeed, you should take the ball at pace. But, I mean, to me, this isn't an accident. It can't be an accident,
No, it's not. It's clear. And Ireland, up to this point in the tournament, have considerably faster ruck speed than anyone else as a consequence of doing this.
Yeah, I think this must really mess around with defences. Because psychologically, you look at the South African approach to this game, they're flying off the line. Right? They are, for a man, you can see that they're G'd up. It's not that Ireland aren't, but to do what Ireland do, you've got to have that coolness of mind. Because the easiest thing when people are flying up at you is like, right, we meet fire with fire, steel with steel. You know, give me that ball, I'm going to carry hard. And they're not carrying hard, but they're carrying in a disciplined manner.
Yeah.
And that is exactly right. Then you get the ruck speed, and then you get the multiple rucks, and then the opposition slow down, and then you can get your feet on it, you can get the backs in. And I think that's what's going on. I'd love to ask this question to a coach.
Yeah, well, this is the kind of question that should be asked to a coach or a player instead of, what does it mean? So you've just won a game.
Yeah, what does it mean to you?
What does it mean to
Nothing.
you? Nothing. Yeah.
Well, obviously something, doesn't it? Yeah, this is exactly the sort of question that should be asked. Why are you taking the ball standing still?
Yeah, and how do you determine who can take it standing still and who can't? Like, is there a split? Is it positional? Is it player positions? Is it individual? Is it geographical or territory based on the pitch? What is it?
Yeah,
but no one will ask that question.
Nope.
Just on the rucks, I thought Ireland were masterful at the ruck. So they only lost 3 rucks all game, which when you consider South Africa, not only the calibre of individuals they have defensively in the ruck, and the fact that they were flooding the rucks is miraculous. Like, that is an absolute marvel.
Yeah, and fair play to Ireland, they turned over a lot of South African rucks. Not with jacklers either. I mean, some with jacklers, a lot of counter-rucking.
It was in the wide channels generally. It's where actually South Africa possibly went too wide too soon, was my point before. Like, if they got overstretched, Ireland identified it. Genuinely on this game, so I watched this, finished watching it about maybe 10:30, something like that, and I had still had like an adrenaline rush. I had to watch Match of the Day for an hour afterwards till I'd try and
had to turn England on.
Had to
watch England on to get to sleep.
Had to watch something boring to try and lower my cortisol and adrenaline levels. Needed a double espresso to reduce my stress.
So if you are, I guess the answer for South Africa is easy. If you're looking to beat South Africa, what is the answer? Well, you need to keep the ball for long phases of time. You need an enormous pack. You need all sorts of things. Probably the answers are quite simple, but they're just not easy.
Yeah.
The question that is not easy or simple is, how do you defeat Ireland's ruck? And that is going to be the key to it. And I believe that is probably one of those questions that Gatland can answer. It's going to be, it's going to be like a Gatland question. I'm not saying Wales can do it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying you need a Gatland-style mind.
Gatland can find the solution. Whether Wales can actually apply that solution is another matter.
And it won't be direct. It will not be, more man in the breakdown. It will be something bizarre, like, I don't know, kicking the ball and keeping it in field. I don't know. It'll be something like, it'll be a second order consequence that defeats that ruck, and I don't know what that is yet.
Yeah, or maybe you have to dial back the physicality of the carrying. You know where Ireland were going really static on the carrying, and then almost absorbing the South Africa rush up. So you almost have like a
dial back,
a passive defence on that static carrying. So the carrier never.
You know, it's not a terrible idea. So they make the ground. But hang on, they flood in, don't they, with their numbers? Yeah. But if you can somehow do it, because blocking on the ball carrier, blocking a defender is actually very hot. You know, like if you block a defender, you'll get penalised.
Yeah, like a crossing style.
But what about micro blocks on ruckers by letting the... So you have
Let the defender kind of go through go through the forest, so there's a load of trees in the way.
Yeah, and whoops, you've sort of ran into us, and then all of a sudden the jackal's on, or the counter ruck. It's very man-intensive. You're probably burning 2 defenders, but maybe that's how you do it.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to find out. Maybe South Africa are the only ones who can do it from this point on.
Well, yeah, it'd be remarkably brave to let Ireland break your line on purpose to try and beat their breakdown.
Yeah.
I mean, but there again, if they're scoring tries from first phase ball and not being tackled, you've defeated the breakdown. You've just got a different problem.
Move the problem downstream.
Yeah, and then you've got to score your own tries. As soon as they get the ball, let them score, and then you score your own tries. They might miss some kicks. You get all yours. Win.
So,
Whether you're driving to work, biking to a friend's place, or on the way to your next vacation, Amazon Music has your comedy fix covered. As an Amazon Prime member, you have access to ad-free top podcasts. To start listening, download the Amazon Music app or visit amazon.com/on-the-go comedy. That's amazon.com/on-the-go comedy. And listen to your favorite podcasts on the go.
We're moving in a new direction, moving forward and moving beyond smoking. We are Altria, and our companies are leading the way in moving adult smokers away from cigarettes by taking action to transition millions toward potentially less harmful choices. As we move from being known as a tobacco company to being recognized as a tobacco harm reduction company, Altria is moving beyond smoking. Find out how at altria.com.
I think we've probably covered everything. We could go and keep talking about that game all day, but we've probably covered most things we wanted to talk about. Shall we go sequentially through the other games?
Let's leave something for Tim. When we speak to Tim, I'll let him talk about England because I don't. And I'll let him talk about what's the other game?
So we had France, Namibia. We had
Portugal, Georgia,
Argentina, Samoa, which was a scrappy game. But Samoa could have won that.
Could they?
If Leo Leofano missed 2 very kickable kicks in the first half, and following that they went for the corner and fluffed it. So had they got one or both of those kicks or been successful with that, this is a totally different game. Georgia, Portugal. Now I've not seen any of that, but I did not see.
It was a draw.
I didn't see an 18-all draw coming. I thought Georgia would win that relatively comfortably, but fair play to Portugal. But that it disappoints me because I was hoping Georgia would get a scalp of.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't. I mean,
Fiji or Wales.
Well, maybe
they still can do.
Maybe it tells me Portugal are really good.
Yeah, maybe they're better than we thought, and Portugal are as we thought.
So, and
then we had England, Chile, which, Cockerell wants to talk about that in depth.
Yeah, look, if you've gone to France, you're in the best position to talk about all those games, not us. It's not our job. Just the last thing, and we'll wrap this up, is the sheer terror which must be descending across the rest of world rugby if you're not in the top 3. Because the top 3 separating themselves now is so clear. It is so clear.
It really does seem it to me. Yeah. Even with New Zealand have beat South Africa once this season already, I don't think they do it again. I don't think they've got the front row. I think in almost every other position they can handle it. They just can't handle the front row.
Yeah. To think that we've got a top 3 which does not include England or New Zealand or Australia is quite remarkable. I mean, actually,
I know those 3 teams are a distance off as well.
They are miles off.
So
daunting for England.
Very daunting for England. So two things to note just before we finish. One, a little bit of housekeeping. We mentioned we did a standalone pod on the RFU a few weeks ago.
As well.
So I'll make these 2 points. You make yours. So we did a standalone pod on the RFU a couple of weeks ago. We will, in the next couple of days, do another standalone pod on the RFU, specifically referencing the letter to the president that was issued last week.
Yep.
So that is coming. Do not worry. The other point I wanted to make is a bit more lighthearted, and friend of the pod, good friend of the pod, Kirk Hullis, messaged me last night to say, this was before kickoff, I didn't read it until after kickoff, to say, first scrum of the game, you show the total pack weight. First line out of the game, they should show the total pack height.
Yeah.
And I think that's, particularly having witnessed the first 4 island lineouts that all went to South Africa, I think that's just an interesting concept.
I agree.
Like, just show it. Like,
and it costs you nothing.
it costs you a 6-year-old with a calculator for 2 minutes to add up the height.
You can even have school children doing maths problems.
Yeah.
Like, that actually works well for all the imaging that they like.
Bless you.
Excuse me. Why have children butchering the anthems, right? When you can actually have them doing maths problems.
Doing some simple maths to add up.
And they could do that.
And you could do it as well. Like, it's interesting when you've got the certainly the reserve props for South Africa. The height of their front row drops substantially.
Yeah.
So you're changing the problem. Like Trevor Nyakane and Oxenishé are distinctly shorter than Malherbe and Kitsoff.
Yes, they are.
They are considerably shorter, so it changes the problem, especially for, like, Porter's not a particularly tall prop, but Sheehan's a tall hooker and Ty Furlong is quite a tall prop.
So I think Macclesfield did this. Macclesfield had 2 lots of front row, and then started them not based on who trained best this week, but their tall front row and their short front row.
Yeah.
In fact, there's lots of action that happened this week in the Northwest, but I think we've gone on too long. That's for Tim.
Yes. Well, Tim will enjoy that one.
Tim will enjoy that. Last thing from me is this email from Stuart Edwards, and I apologise, Stuart, because he sent me this quite a few times, and we just haven't got around to talking about it. Sorry, not Stuart, but I've seen this quite a few times.
Okay.
And it is Stuart Edwards is the chair of the Minis and Juniors of Telford Hornets, or RFC. They are raising money for their mini and junior tour next April, and in doing so, one of their coaches, Nick, is helping by lifting the combined weight of all the rugby teams in the world in the Rugby World Cup. Which, by the way, if he can do that, he should be playing.
Is he benching it or
benching it at the same time?
One rep bench.
Yeah, so he's lifting. This is remarkable, actually. I mean, we should really break down how you best do this, but 305,880 kilograms.
Wow.
How many deadlifts is that?
A lot. So,
what would you do?
100 kg deadlift.
Crikey, it is a lot.
You do it 10 times. That's 1,000. So 300,000. So that's
no.
So if you do it as 100 kg, that's 3,000 reps. Is that...
Jesus Christ! It must be, mustn't it?
Yeah. 300,000 divided by 100 kg.
How else would you lift this?
3,000.
What would be your modality of lifting?
Yeah, well, if you're doing anything less than 100 kg, like if you're doing it 50 kg, you're doing 6,000 reps. Like, I don't know, what period of time is it? I guess if you're doing that...
Well, let me find out for you. Nick is helping by lifting the combined weight of all the rugby teams in the Rugby World Cup and cycling the distance between all the host cities in France. Don't care about that bit. But, look, middle-aged men cycle everywhere. That's not a big deal. My little brother cycled to San Sebastian the other day from London.
Oh, I spotted on Strava he was doing
his miles went
way up.
But the lifting, however, right? So he's got until the final in October. 6,000 reps. He's going to be stacked.
6,050 or 3,000 reps of 100 kg.
Hang on. So I do 25 lifts per session.
Yeah.
That's not enough.
You need a big weight. Can you lift, what would it be, over a ton, like 1.2 tons at a time?
Yeah,
per
I'm always
rep?
lifting over 100 kilograms when I lift.
Yeah.
So 25 reps a day.
Like I often do, like if I've just got a barbell and a few weights and not a proper session, I'll do 100 reps at 100 kg. Like GV, like EMOM, 10 sets of 10 on 100 kg deadlifts. But that's 10,000.
It's the most ludicrous challenge I've ever heard of.
That is 1/30th of what you need to do. You need to do that 30 times over to get where he is.
My word. Well,
Unless my maths is
I'm
slightly
not entirely
off.
sure where you find this challenge. There was a poster here,
Fair
it's got a QR
play.
code. QR
Telford Hornets.
Telford Hornets. Go and look them up. I can't describe what the QR code looks to you on air, so that's going to be pointless. Or you could draw it out, I guess.
Yep.
Little square, big square,
Yeah.
little square.
Little white square, bigger black square, little white square.
So anyway, yeah, go well, Nick. I can't. In fact, if you're listening to this, Stuart or Nick, send me an email because I want to know what you break down.
What times get like? If you try to do that in 24 hours, that just seems it seems maybe impossible.
One last question on this: do you? I mean, 6,000 deadlifts, right? It's going to develop some muscle imbalances. So is he
You're going to have to do the equivalent,
Yeah, is he
like
gonna
front
have to,
squat or
Yeah, exactly. Is he going to balance these out? Fine, let us know. Let us know. We're fascinated.
amazing.
Right, so we'll see you tomorrow morning. There is yet another podcast coming to preview Wales.
Or to review Wales, Australia.
Oh yeah. So review Wales and Australia. Fiji are in action, are they not?
The big game is Wales Australia this afternoon.
And in addition to that, we've got all the Northwest action, and catch up with Tim, see what he's been doing.
So today's Scotland Tonga and Wales Australia. Give me your winners in one word. Scotland v Tonga.
Scotland.
Wales v Australia.
Wales.
I agree, and I think if Australia had their two biggest players, physically biggest players, in Taniela Tupou and Will Skelton, I think Australia probably win that. Without them, give me Wales by 7 points.
Wales by 7 points. Love it. Right, see you tomorrow.
Whether you're driving to work, biking to a friend's place, or on the way to your next vacation, Amazon Music has your comedy fix covered. As an Amazon Prime member, you have access to ad-free top podcasts. To start listening, download the Amazon Music app or visit amazon.com/on-the-go comedy. That's amazon.com/on-the-go comedy. And listen to your favorite podcasts on the go.
Whatever you're saving up for, a CD from Sandy Spring Bank lets you grow your savings at a guaranteed rate. Right now, earn interest at 5.50% APY on an 8-month CD special or 5.00% APY on a 14-month CD special. Learn more at sandyspringbank.com/CD specials. Minimum opening deposit to earn the annual percentage yield is $500 for the 8-month CD special and $2,500 for the 14-month CD special. Member FDIC.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.